Is it now as it's usually?
Yes.
Hello.
Good morning.
I just told you the host, Olivier, to let Ori in. I'm going to make you host again, but maybe you have to make me co-host again. I don't know.
Testing. Yeah, it's good.
Okay, I'll make you co-host. Good morning.
Good morning. All right. Frame is all right, no?
Beautiful.
All right. Have a good session.
Thank you.
Thank
Ciao.
you. See you later. Okay. How did it go on Friday?
Perfect.
Perfect. Very good.
No, it went well. Yeah, it was well. Yeah. Did you have a good weekend?
Sorry?
You have a good weekend.
Yes. And you?
Very good. Yes, it was beautiful weather here.
Yeah, here too. And I'm basically, well, in my head, I just moved to Berlin, which is already more than a year now, but it was always Corona, right? Or like much more than now. And so now I'm starting to explore the region. And it's actually beautiful. It's freaking beautiful. It's really, really different than where I come from, but it's really nice.
Where do you come from?
The very south, opposite.
All right. Yeah.
Opposite of Germany.
I've been to Berlin once, and I came to to Dharma and didn't have much time to explore. But even just the area where the center is, I remember it was quite very nice.
Yeah. I mean, I've been to the city, but not to the, surrounding landscape really. And it's like like DDR, like the former East Germany and so on. So it's kind of interesting how
Very
you
good.
can, like learn things about your own country. Yeah.
Lovely. Yeah.
All right, I'm gonna go.
Okay. See you later.
See you. Good morning, everyone. Let's start with our motivation. In the Buddha, Dharma, and the Supreme Assembly, I take refuge until I attain enlightenment through the merit of practicing generosity and the rest. May I attain Buddhahood for the benefit of all beings. In the Buddha, Dharma, and the Supreme Assembly, I take refuge until I attain enlightenment through the merit of practicing generosity and the rest. May I attain Buddhahood for the benefit of all beings. In the Buddha, Dharma, and the Supreme Assembly, I take refuge until I attain enlightenment through the merit of practicing generosity and the rest. May I attain Buddhahood for the benefit of all beings. May all sentient beings enjoy happiness, and the causes of happiness be free from suffering, and the causes of suffering may they never be separated from the great happiness devoid of suffering, and may they dwell in the great equanimity that is free from attachment and aversion. Homage to the Guru and the Protector, Venerable Manyaghosha. Your wisdom is brilliant and pure like the sun, free from the clouds of the two obscurations. You perceive the whole of reality exactly as it is, and so hold the book of transcendental wisdom at your heart. You look upon all beings imprisoned within samsara, enshrouded by the thick darkness of ignorance and tormented by suffering. With the love of a mother for her only child, your enlightened speech endowed with 60 melodious tones, like the thundering roar of a dragon, awakens us from the sleep of destructive emotions and frees us from the chains of karma. Dispelling the darkness of ignorance, you wield the sword of wisdom to cut through all our suffering. Pure from the very beginning, you have reached the end of the 10 bhumis and perfected all enlightened qualities, foremost to the Buddha's heirs. Your body is adorned with the 112 marks of enlightenment. To Manyaghosha, the gentle voiced, I prostrate and pray, dispel the darkness from my mind. Umarapatsanali. Umarapatsanali. With all your kindness and love, let your wisdom's shining light clear the darkness of my ignorance once and for all. Grant me, I pray, the intelligence, the brilliance to understand the scriptures, the words of the Buddha and works of the masters. And whenever I wish to look upon you or ask of you anything at all, Lord and Protector Manjushri, let me see you without any hindrance. The ground is purified with sentient water and strewn with flowers. It is adorned with Sumeru, the king of mountains, the 4 quarters of the universe, and the sun and the moon. Thinking of it as the blessed Buddha feels, I offer it. By virtue of this offering, may all beings here and now attain the happiness of that pure land. Tram Guru Ratna Mandala Putsa Mega Samudra Sapranaya Samaya Hum. I implore you, according to the temperament and the mental capacity of sentient beings, please turn the wheel of Dharma of all the vehicles, lesser, greater, and general.
Good morning, everyone. Let us begin our class by reflecting on bodhicitta, and again, within the context of our course, that is the framework of entering into middle way, bodhicitta can be defined as aspiration to perfect the view of non-duality and conduct of compassion. So let us reflect and try to suffuse our motivation and state of our mind with that aspiration. the aspiration to perfect the view of non-duality, and the motivation or the conduct based on compassion. Kangi Dinjin Dewa Jung, Gabameva, Kimeva, Chivameva, Tomeva, Ongomeva, Dromeva, Tadedimi Dinjimi, Trebani, Shishi Dempa, Sobiasangimanaki. Tomba de la Chazelo, Nindeji was on Kishin Nishi, Tizikan in Dandula, Pemberjin of Shinigi, Dindin. Kandayanda de Betuna number in the Nazo de Soma, Indian Shusin Bisuji Sanjini Yum de la Chazelo. Given Gonditari de Nidin, Injurism is significant. Tiju Umisi Lurubula Sama, the Dignity was some Niji. Tanya Zinando Mrs. Abidon Gedon and Gizet, the water was on the Jason of the Regish, singing a Lomerida, Tazel. Tukden gane chungwan de la de rigin chanda le mandongwa le nime jen chuju lo de chuju so la nying se ta chin chin ge no kange da la ri bala bada do jidin je me nga jidin so la bada da jin la bong ko ngo je la ma nam ge ta yi chung. So good morning everyone. As you all know, the most important purpose, or probably the fundamental purpose of Buddha Dharma, the reason why Buddha Shakyamuni taught, or to use the classical phrase, turn the wheel of Dharma, is not to show his own learning or not his own realization. It is out of compassion that Buddha taught and turned the wheel of Dharma many times. And Buddha's compassion, which really prompted him to teach or turn the wheel of Dharma, is again expression of his realization of the view. So the perfect compassion, so to speak, can only happen when one has perfectly realized the view. So until and unless one has attained the Buddhahood, our compassion, our understanding of the view will always be limited in the sense of being conditioned by references and by duality, so to speak. Only when one attains the Buddhahood, the perfect wisdom will be attained. One has really now removed the thickets of the dualistic view, and then at that moment the compassion will also arise naturally, spontaneously, unstained by any kind of expectation, any kind of dualistic tendencies. And so we too should always aspire to attain that kind of level of realization, that kind of state, and that in itself is the one of the aspects of bodhicitta, really to perfect compassion, so to speak, to really perfect, not in the sense of understanding, but really to infuse our own being with compassion. And that can only happen when one has been able to repenetrate the depth of non-duality. And what is preventing us from realizing that kind of penetration, that kind of understanding or insight? It is our own ego clinging, our own self-cherishing, and fundamentally dualistic tendencies, or misidentification of oneself, the wrong view of I, right? So therefore, the teachings and instructions embedded in this text, and by extension in many of the Mahayana texts, are aimed at, targeted at that fundamental misidentification. So the Madhyamika masters like Nagarjuna, like Chandakirti, believes that if one put into practice what they are saying, the instructions, they believe that one will be able to initially remove the self-cherishing, and then eventually one will be able to remove the wrong view, and eventually will be able to penetrate the non-duality. And then when one has deeply cultivated the view of non-duality, they think that it will naturally or spontaneously be expressed as compassion. So this is their worldview, or their idea of why they are teaching, and why, for example, Nagarjuna thought Buddha has taught. So we have to keep all of this in mind. And within, again, it's a very general point. Self-cherishing, of course, we know is one of the most important cause of samsaric life, samsaric experiences, self-cherishing. But self-cherishing is already kind of a grosser level of cause. The most subtle level is the wrong view, right? So misidentification of I leads to mine, and then the self-cherishing arise. So fundamentally it is the wrong view, misidentification of I, the misprojection or misapprehension of the nature of oneself, one's own identity. That is the most kind of a fundamental cause of samsaric experiences, and then based on that I or that ignorance comes mind, and then self-cherishing and so on. So in the Mahayana teaching in general, and especially in the Madhyamika teachings, the self-cherishing is usually counteracted, or self-cherishing is undermined by relative bodhicitta. Yeah, exchange of self-cherishing with other cherishing. That is the that's the idea. So self-cherishing it's a grosser kind of a level of cause of samsaric experience, and that is counteracted by practice of relative bodhicitta, namely the Tonglen and Lojong, especially the bodhicitta's practice of exchanging self-cherishing with other cherishing. So the self-cherishing is counteracted or undermined by the teaching on relative bodhicitta. Now the fundamental cause on which the self-cherishing is based on, the fundamental cause of samsara is, as I mentioned earlier, it is the wrong view, it is the misapprehension of one's own nature, dualistic tendency. And for that, Madhyamika has developed or presented the teachings and instruction on the ultimate bodhicitta as an antidote. So the fundamental cause is removed by ultimate antidote, and then the grosser expression of that fundamental misapprehension, namely self-cherishing, is counteracted by relative bodhicitta. But again, both are needed for both. So in order to get rid of self-cherishing, wisdom is needed. Likewise, compassion, the expression of exchange of self-cherishing with other cherishing, is needed. Likewise, in order to remove the fundamental cause, namely the ignorance, again, compassion is needed. So both are required, although there is direct kind of a relation between the self-cherishing and the self-cherishing and then the relative bodhicitta, and then the ultimate bodhicitta and fundamental cause. So this is how one should understand texts like this, and generally speaking, many of the Mahayana doctrines, this is how one should try to see, and always not forget the spiritual context of the spiritual and liberation context of the text and instructions. And then we are almost now coming to the end of the 6th chapter, which is a very long, as we have noticed, and also very dense and sometimes difficult to understand. But in any case, I think not only the content of the 6th chapter, but generally speaking, the whole vision of Madhyamika is, at least in its general kind of a conception, is understandable. Maybe when we get into details and nitty-gritties, it's sometimes we get lost and difficult to understand, and we may get confused. But the general idea, the general vision of Madhyamika, I think is understandable. And again, if one is to kind of reduce the general vision of Madhyamika to some sound bites or slogans, it is the understanding of, it is the insight into emptiness or into interdependent origination expressed as compassion. That seems to be the fundamental vision of Madhyamika, the fundamental view of Nagarjuna, Chandakirti, and these two guys will say of even of Buddha. So again, the fundamental vision of Madhyamika is really this insight into non-duality or interdependent origination expressed or manifested as compassion. That seems to be the fundamental vision of Madhyamika teaching and tradition, and that is, I think, it's easy to understand in a way. But when we go into details, like especially in this text, for example, trying to establish that interdependent origination or that emptiness, he brings many viewpoint, criticize them, and then we might get confused, and then we might get caught up in the details. But again, never to lose the sight of this fundamental vision is very, very important. Which is easy to understand, also easy to remember, and also very, very inspiring, I guess, and I hope so. Okay, and then As we know, the textual context of this text is basically the textual context of this text is Prajnaparamita Sutras. We will come how Chandakirti formulates and understand the comments of Prajnaparamita from today. And then also another scriptural context or textual context is the sutra called Sutras of 10 Bhumis, which we have encountered earlier. And obviously the works of Nagarjuna, especially his Root of Wisdom and Jewel of Garland. These also seems to be the main textual background or sources of ideas of Chandakirti's teaching here. On top of that, we have to remember this text is also written by one of the greatest scholars of his time, of classical Indian intellectual scene, and therefore for him the intellectual context is also the intellectual climate of that time, namely the classical Indian spiritual and philosophical traditions, which he criticizes and assesses in the 6th chapter. So the textual background or framework, the intellectual climate in which this text was composed, these things are also very important. And because of this, we might ask, what is the relevance of this teaching and its what is the relevance of this teaching and the text? What is the relevance? How is it relevant in our time? We could ask that, and it's, I think, valid question. We have to ask this because in terms of historically, it was written by someone who is living in a monastery in 6th or 5th century, separated from us by more than 1 millennia, almost like 1500 years. He live in a very, very different world, different culture, different, I don't know, different thinking, different political system. Everything is very, very different from us. And also, even if we are, maybe some of us might be interested because of curiosity with respect to antiquity, that could be one reason. But again, one has to go back to the fundamental vision of Madhyamika. They think, by extension, not only Madhyamika, but all Buddhists think that man-made suffering or our samsaric experiences are basically rooted in the terrible trinity, the three poisons. Yeah, aversion, greed, and ignorance. They think that this is the main culprit that is creating sorrow, sufferings, and then so on. And on top of that, not only recognizing our samsaric experiences, but they are also able to diagnose it as being rooted in these three things. So our samsaric experiences are, according to Madhyamika and according to Buddha, are rooted in these three things. So they are the cause. There's the suffering, which is the result, and it is being rooted in primarily in these three things. And so they are able to recognize the suffering or samsaric experiences rooted in this, and diagnosed by saying that they are rooted in these three things. And these three things are, some of them are has this more of an emotional aspect, while some have this cognitive aspect, because aversion and greed could be kind of one can see them as really as an emotion, while ignorance can be seen as more as a cognitive, like a flawed view, so to speak. This is what they think. So this is how they diagnose the samsaric and our human experience. But having diagnosed and recognized these samsaric experiences, the Madhyamika teachers also thinks that it is possible to get beyond them, to transcend this samsaric experience. And how they do that? They think that historically Buddha transcended. Buddha was able to go beyond the samsaric experiences and its root. And they think that we too can also in principle do the same thing as Buddha did. And the manner or the way they do is through the cultivation of the fundamental vision of Madhyamika, namely the insight into interdependent origination expressed as emptiness. So this is how they think that one can do and transcend the samsaric experience. Therefore, the content of this text, the instruction of this text is, as we Buddhists, I think also all of us will say, is still relevant, despite its origin. It's originated in a very different setting from us, very different world, very different climate, but still the instructions, still the content, what this text has to say is still very, very relevant. And Chandrakirti, I think if he is alive, he will still argue that what he is saying has relevant for someone who aspire for happiness and who feel limited and vulnerable and confused. So he will say that it still have this relevance, and we also have to ask this question again and again and see how relevant the text is speaking to us as a samsaric sentient being. Otherwise, it's it's better to watch Netflix if it is not relevant. Okay, and then maybe if you have any comment or questions or anything that you like to share over the weekends that you have came across, please.
Yes, I have a general question. So, I try to relate the four obscuration with the paths of the Bodhisattva, and you talked about this. Could we say a Bodhisattva on the path from the first and to the 10th bhumi has already removed these emotional obscurations, but he has to cleanse the karmic traces, and this on the post-meditation level?
One can think like that, one can say like this. So bodhisattvas, Arya Bodhisattva, the noble Bodhisattva from the path of seeing or from the first bhumis, they have already removed the afflictions, like obscuration of afflictions, but they still have traces, karmic traces also. Likewise, they have the traces of afflictions. So the traces and affliction themselves are a little bit different. So the Bodhisattva has removed this karma also, I think they have removed, especially karma pertaining to the samsara, and they have also removed the afflictions, but they still have traces, and these traces are what the Bodhisattva has to work with in the bhumis. And this is nicely expressed and presented in the Maitreya's tradition. Probably these traces in the Uttara Tantra Shastra, Maitreya list so-called four thing like something which Yigiran Shingilyu. So bodhisattvas on bhumi, they will, because of the traces, they will acquire a body, a mental body, and then they will also go through stages of dying and disintegration, very, very different from us, but still dying and disintegration. And and like karmic traces is also there. So there are such four kinds of obscuration, so to speak, which are really traces of the karma and affliction. So the bodhisattvas on the bhumi has to deal with these traces, mainly, primarily.
And this, what we call the cognitive obscuration,
Yes,
so intellectual and habitual tendencies, he works on it also.
Yes.
Okay.
So yes, to use the technical Buddhist term, there are these two classes of obscurations. Nyenmongbidiba, the obscurations of afflictions, and Shijidiba, the obscuration to the knowledge. And bodhisattvas on the bhumis primarily works with the obscuration towards knowledge. And these are traces, karmic traces, but also the dualistic appearances. Not only dualistic grasping, which they have already got rid of, but even the appearances, like the dualistic appearances, is for the bodhisattva on higher bhumi is obscuration to knowledge. So they have to work on this, and then only at the end of the 10th bhumi they will be able to get rid of any kind of gross traces, root of non-dualistic tendencies, and then we'll realize the non-duality in its entirety, and that's the state of Buddhahood.
Thank you.
Okay, then we go into the text. Now we are, as I mentioned at the very beginning of our course together, when we were discussing the title of the text, Entering into the Middle Way, or Introduction to the Middle Way. And here, Middle Way, I suggested it as primarily connoting some of the scriptures, mainly Nagarjuna's writing, but by extension, I also said it also connotes the Prajnaparamita Sutra. So entering into middle way is entering into Prajnaparamita Sutras. And how does he enter? How does he lead us into the Prajnaparamita Sutra? Now is the time. Chandrakirti is going to explain some of these concepts. And here, I think it is verse number, a moment, no. Sorry, verse number 179, no? I think, yes. So there, Chandrakirti is talking about to help free beings, to liberate the sentient beings from samsara and from being limited by the dualistic views. The Buddha taught no self in twofold terms. So that is in terms, Buddha taught this as no self, or the teaching of emptiness, in two distinct forms. Although essentially same, but he expressed and taught it in terms of two different things, namely the selflessness of phenomena and selflessness of person. That of phenomena and that of person. So, and again, for the sake of diverse trainees, like sentient beings with different predilections, sentient beings with different intellectual and emotional predilection, Buddha expounded these two in diverse terms. So for the sake of diverse, multiple, like keeping in context the different background of the sentient beings, Buddha taught essentially two things, two selflessness, but in different way. This is what the text is saying, through further enumerations. And here, maybe I think it is important for us to know slightly about the manner Buddha taught selflessness or teaching of emptiness, in the difference between how Buddha taught the teaching of emptiness in the Shravakayana and in the Mahayana. This is important. And Chandrakirti elaborates about this difference in the commentary on the first chapter, but last time we didn't have time, or at least we didn't go there into detail, so I would like to present these differences here. So we have to realize that both in the sutras of Shravakas and the Mahayana sutras, Buddha taught selflessness. For example, there's a very short, even now in the Pali Canon also, there's a very short sutra called Sutra of Katyana, a sutra like requested by Katyayana. Katyayana is one of the Buddha's disciple and arhat, and in that particular sutra, Buddha was talking with Katyayana and instructing him, and there it has Buddha taught selflessness. And likewise in the Mahayana, for example, in the Prajnaparamita Sutras, like Heart Sutras, Diamond Sutras, Prajnaparamita in 100,000 verses and so on, or 800,000 lines, Buddha taught selflessness. But the manner or the way Buddha taught selflessness in the Rudhyana Sutra and Mahayana Sutra are different. So the difference are in terms of Buddha, for example, taught selflessness in Mahayana Sutra clearly, while in the Rudhyana Sutra, Buddha implied the selflessness. So through examples, for example, Chandrakirti quotes these things. In the Mahayana Sutra, if you look into the into the Heart Sutra, it says, no, form is emptiness, emptiness is form. It's explicit. Even the word itself is explicitly teaching the emptiness. So clarity, the emptiness is taught in Mahayana clearly. In the Rudhyana, it is implied through examples. So Buddha says, Zugni Uva Devada. So Buddha in the Rudhyana Sutra says, form is like a form. Our aggregates, form is like a form, no? FOM, this form on the water. So he used this example. So there is difference in terms of whether the emptiness is taught clearly or not. In the Mahayana, it is taught clearly. That is the first difference. Then second is the extensively. In the Mahayana Sutra, the emptiness is taught extensively or elaborately, while in the Rudhyana Sutra it is taught but in a very condensed form, in a non-extensive form. So for example, here in the Mahayana Sutra, we will come across like phenomena from the form until the omniscience of Buddha. Every phenomena is listed and taught extensively as emptiness. But in the Rudhyana Sutra, it is basically person and the 5 aggregates of person that is taught to be emptiness and not taught extensively. So in the Mahayana Sutras, the teaching of emptiness is taught extensively in terms of the phenomena established as emptiness. Yeah, every phenomena is established as emptiness in the Mahayana Sutra, while in the Rudhyana Sutra, the phenomena, it's only limited phenomena is established as emptiness. So there is the difference in terms of how it is taught in terms of extensively or non-extensively. That is the second difference. Clearly, extensively, and then in the Mahayana Sutras, emptiness is taught completely. In the Rudhyana Sutras, emptiness is taught, but rather in an incomplete way. That is, for example, in the Mahayana Sutra, when Buddha teach about the emptiness of this glass, he negates all extremes or all elaboration with respect to this glass. It is existence with regard to glass is negated. Non-existence is negated. Both existence and non-existence is negated. And then neither is negated with respect to a particular object or particular subject. But in the Rudhyana Sutra, only intrinsic existence is negated with respect to a particular subject. So in the Rudhyana Sutra, emptiness is taught in such a manner that only the intrinsic existence, the first extreme or first elaboration, is negated. But in the Mahayana Sutra, all 4 elaborations are negated on any phenomena. So there is this the idea of whether emptiness is presented in its complete form or in its limited form. In Chandrakirti's own commentary, he used these 3 adverbs to describe selva, geba, zopa. So clearly selva, geba, elaborately or extensively, and completely zopa. So the emptiness taught in the Mahayana is more kind of a complete and like more complete, I think that's the word. So this is how the emptiness, although taught in both Rudhyana and Mahayana, but Mahayanas are more complete. The presentation of emptiness in Mahayana Sutras are more complete, are more whole. I think that's how one can see. So this also shows that the Rudhyana and Mahayana is because some people think that almost like Mahayana and Rudhyana are like incompatible, but this is not the case. It's really like a continuation. Maybe there are many academics who don't believe that Mahayana is actually taught by Buddha, but for them also they think that there is at least the continuation of idea. And from the traditional perspective, which Tibetan tradition is a traditional perspective, from the traditional Tibetan perspective, Mahayana and Rudhyana are basically saying the same thing but in a different way, and Vajrayana is also extension of that view, so to speak. Likewise, compassion is found and taught in the Rudhyana, but it is not emphasized and it is not taught in such a rich manner as it is taught and presented in the Mahayana Sutras. So there is really a continuation from these 2, and generally probably some of you have already noticed, I really think that the core teaching of Buddha Shakyamuni is 4 Noble Truths. So the turning of first wheel of Dharma focuses on the first 2 Noble Truths, the truth of suffering and truth of cessation. The second turning of wheel of Dharma, namely Prajnaparamita teachings, they focus they are not focused, they are like a teaching on the implication of third Noble Truth, the cessation, truth of cessation, which is really emptiness, on non-dualistic teaching. And then the teaching on third wheel of Dharma, namely the teaching related with Buddha nature, is extension of the 4th Noble Truth, namely the path. Because path has to be appreciated. Buddhist path implies the possibility of cultivation of wisdom and compassion infinitely, right? Buddhist path implies that egocentricity, aversion, greed can be removed, and that is based on the meditative insight into the nature of mind, namely the luminous nature of mind, the mere awareness nature of mind. And this mere awareness nature of mind, the luminous nature of mind, is emphasized in the third turning of wheel of Dharma, which I think is a continuation and development of the fourth noble truth, namely the truth of the path. Okay, now let us go a little bit into the text. After teaching in an elaborate way 16 kinds of emptiness, the Buddha summarized this into 4, and he held this to be the great way as well. So in the Prajnaparamita Sutra, Buddha Shakyamuni taught emptiness, 16 kinds of emptiness, and we will come across all 16 kinds of emptiness in the following pages and following verses. And then Buddha also again summarized these 16 categories of emptiness into 4 types, which again we will come across in this text. And this is how so in the sutras, Buddha just listed this 16 emptiness, and Chandrakirti here in this text is elaborating on those emptiness. Yeah, and one could also really think this as a in the Abhidharma. In the Abhidharma, phenomena are listed, like 70 phenomena or something like this. Many phenomena are listed, but their emptiness is not expressed. In the Prajnaparamita, the same list of phenomena is taken and shown to be emptiness. So here one can also say that this particular section of the 6th chapter of Entering into Middle Way is primarily commentary on Prajnaparamita, but also in a way commentary on the Abhidharma understanding, or Chandrakirti's reading of Abhidharma. So now the first is this elaborate way, that is the 16 kinds of emptiness, and 16 kinds of emptiness are presented from verse number 181 until, just a moment, 218. So 6.181 until 218. And then from there, the 4 emptiness are presented. The first is emptiness of inner emptiness. So here, if we understand the first the first emptiness, namely the inner emptiness, then the same structure is applied to other things. It's only the change in the subject, the emptiness of cup and emptiness of pain. So first emptiness, second emptiness, it's just the change of the substance. How they are empty and why they are empty are more or less identical. Yeah. So since their very nature is emptiness, the eyes are devoid of eyes. It's a startling claim. No eyes are devoid of eyes. It's really counterintuitive. We have eye, and how can it be devoid of eye? But Chandrakirti says that eyes are devoid of eye, and this is reminiscent of Buddha's word in the Heart Sutra. Form is emptiness, and emptiness is form. That is expressed in a different way by saying eye is devoid of eye. Therefore, eye is emptiness. And if you want to know how it can be, we can go back to the arguments and look for the eye, search for the eye. And we might never find I, and Chandrakirti's comment might be true. If we are able to find I, then yes, we are right. Chandrakirti probably is wrong, but Chandrakirti says since their very nature is emptiness, the eyes are devoid of eyes. And many Tibetan, very influential Tibetan teacher did not took this to be literal. For him, this is too nihilistic reading if we read it literally. Namely, Lama Tsongkhapa didn't took this to be. For him, since their very nature is emptiness, the eyes are devoid of intrinsic eyes. This is how Lama Tsongkhapa interpreted, and why he got scolded by Mifam and Gorampa. For lamas like Mifam and Gorampa, like for Sakyapa, Kajupa, and Nyingmapa, eyes are devoid of eyes. That's it. We should not misinterpret, or we should not qualify this comment. For Lama Tsongkhapa, we have to qualify, because if eyes are devoid of eyes, then there will be no eyes at all, and then we cannot see. And then this is how we fall into nihilism. So Lama Tsongkhapa interpreted this as eyes are devoid of intrinsic eye, qualifying it by adding the word intrinsic. And for Mifam, this is not necessary. Yes, there are certain within the stages of path, within the gradual stages of path, maybe initially one could say for a trainee, for a bodhisattva, eyes is eyes is devoid of intrinsic eyes, but for the mature bodhisattva, that is not necessary. But Lama Tsongkhapa thinks that it is always necessary to qualify. In any case, Chandrakirti himself says that eyes are devoid of eyes, and so are ears, nose, tongue, and body and mind too are devoid of themselves. And why? The reason is presented in next two line, the first two line of 182, because they do not endure eternally and because they do not disintegrate. Eyes are empty, or eyes are devoid of eyes, because it does not endure eternally and it does not disintegrate. Why does it not endure eternally and why does it not disintegrate? Because it has never arisen. And how do we know that? Chandrakirti will point out to the refutation of causality. Yeah. So the absence of intrinsic existence of six senses, these six senses, such as eye, is emptiness. So the emptiness of eye, the eye being empty of eye itself, is so-called inner emptiness. Yeah. So what is inner emptiness? The first among the 16 emptiness. Inner emptiness is emptiness of the six senses, like eye and so on. And why is eye emptiness? Because eye does not endure eternally and it does not disintegrate. And why is that? Because it's the very nature of eye to be devoid of eye. So in this way, eye has never arisen. Yeah. And that is called the first emptiness. And here it's where in 182, the first line, since they are very nature, this is very important. Emptiness here is not constructed or not invented by Buddha or Nagarjuna, or it is not some sort of an invention of Madhyamika's argument. They are merely revealing the nature of I, right? That is the emptiness. Madhyamika reasoning and Madhyamika arguments has this revelatory aspect, not inventing the emptiness. And this point will be emphasized again and again in sutras. It's said, whether Buddha has turned up or not, emptiness, the nature of things is emptiness, indeed will be emptiness. Likewise, the conditioned phenomena will disintegrate, whether Buddha taught it or not. Buddha is just revealing. Likewise, Nagarjuna and Chandrakirti, they are just revealing the nature of I. It has always been devoid of I. So the first emptiness, the inner emptiness among the 16, because such is their nature, form is devoid of form, sound, smell, touch, taste, touch, and mental objects are likewise empty. That form and so forth have no intrinsic nature is accepted as outer emptiness. So this is the outer emptiness. The lack of intrinsic existence of both, that is the inner six senses, and then the outer form and so on, are known as inner and outer emptiness, the third emptiness. Here, I think it is very important for us to reflect a little bit on this word intrinsic, intrinsic nature. In the Tibetan, it's I think this is the translation of Tibetan term rangi tseni, rangtsen, or abbreviated like in the show. Abbreviation is rangtsen, rangi tseni. And it has 3 levels of meaning. And within the Madhyamika, these 3 levels of meaning are recognized, and some are accepted, some are not accepted. So the rangi tseni, like the intrinsic nature. For example, the intrinsic of this, if we are talking about the intrinsic of nature of this cup, then it could be the unique characteristics of this cup. Its shape, its form, the level, its cylindrical shape, its translucent nature, the inner space, yeah, and then where it is made. These are the intrinsic, like the uncommon characteristics or uncommon feature of this cup. So that is the first idea. if we say the intrinsic nature of curve, intrinsic nature of this curve, sorry, the intrinsic nature of this class, it could mean three things for Madhyamika. The first one is uncommon characteristics of this class: its shape, its volume, its material, its transparency, and so on. So Timung Maimbi Jogje, like the uncommon feature or characteristics of this curve is its intrinsic nature. That conventionally exists. Conventionally it is there. This curve is unique. This class is unique. It's different from all other curves or classes. Then the second is, and then if you say the second meaning of intrinsic nature of curve, it could mean the very much related with the first one. It could mean the unique space, unique spatial and temporal dimension in which this curve exists. So this curve exists in this particular space at this particular time, right? That is the second intrinsic nature of the curve. That probably has the connotation of some sort of absoluteness, and Madhyamika may not accept that. Yeah, the intrinsic nature of class, the second meaning of intrinsic, the second meaning of phrase intrinsic nature of class connotes the idea of some sort of absolute space and absolute temporal duration, absolute spatial dimension and temporal dimension in which the curve exists. That probably Madhyamika does not accept. Then the third meaning of the intrinsic nature of curve connotes that curve exists in an objective way, curve exists in an independent way. That is rejected by Madhyamika. So these are the three meanings. And in the text, currently when we are reading through this 16 types of emptiness, so it says, no, I is empty of I is empty of intrinsic nature. It means the first one, the common feature. I is empty of I. That is, the conventional I is empty of conventional I itself, which I at the beginning said is a startling claim. Yeah. So this is how one can understand this intrinsic nature, the three meanings of intrinsic nature. And Madhyamika on a conventional level says, yes, does I have intrinsic nature? It does. How does it have intrinsic nature? It has a unique feature. That is accepted on a conventional level. And for Chandrakirti, that conventional level, that conventional phenomena is empty of itself. And that for that kind of reading for Lama Tsongkhapa is falling into nihilism, like really rejection of conventional. And conventionality does not include mundane substance, mundane objects like glasses and pen and mobile phone, but it also includes the whole Buddhist practices. And if we say that whole Buddhist practices from bodhicitta until, I don't know, these 2 stages of Vajrayana are empty of themselves, that according to Lama Tsongkhapa is really a very dangerous misunderstanding. And what Lama Mifum and others says this, Buddhist path, Madhyamika theories, Madhyamika teachings themselves are, the conventionally existing Madhyamika teachings are devoid of themselves. This is what it seems to be saying. Okay, so in any case, we have already listed or came across 3 emptiness: the inner emptiness, the outer emptiness, and inner and outer emptiness. Okay, if you have any questions or comment here at this point.
So Namla, I didn't, I understood what on verse 184, when you were explaining about this outer emptiness, but then when it says the lack of intrinsic existence of both is inner and outer emptiness, then I didn't get it.
So the first emptiness is the 6 emptiness of the sense organs like eye and so on. Outer emptiness is the emptiness of the external object, form and so on. And then the emptiness of these two, the form and eye, is emptiness of inner and outer emptiness. Yeah, it's kind of a repetition, but taught in a phrase in a different terms. The essentially same, as I mentioned earlier. The emptiness of pain, the first is emptiness of pain, second is emptiness of glass, third is emptiness of pain and glass. So this is how Chandrakirti is reading, yeah. And of course, for at a very glance, it might seem a bit not ridiculous, but kind of not interesting way to present emptiness, but Buddha seems to have many things. Some people think that only I has, some people think that I has this intrinsic existence. Some people only think that the form has intrinsic existence. Some people think that both has this intrinsic nature. So as earlier it said, again, for the sake of diverse trainees, that is, some people hold only the sense organ to have intrinsic nature, some people only hold other. So by taking into diverse kind of a fixation and diverse predilection of the trainees, Buddha taught emptiness in a different way, although it is essentially same to emptiness, selflessness of phenomena and selflessness of person, but he expressed it in a different way. That is what the text and these emptinesses are saying. And then let's go to the next one, the fourth emptiness, emptiness of emptiness. Maybe if, I don't know, Arne could find this 16 emptiness and post it in the chat, I guess that will be helpful for people. That all things lack intrinsic existence, this the wise described as emptiness. So the Buddha described or taught it as emptiness. Emptiness itself is in turn held to be devoid of essential emptiness. This is a very, very crucial point. We should not absolutize even emptiness itself. And at that point, the only thing that we could do is maintain the noble silence, as Buddha did and as Vimalakirti did when he's like really asked about that most inexpressible experience or inexpressible insight. And I think I had repeated this many times. One of the very Jigme, the great Nyingmapa master, is one of the most eloquent poet in Tibetan history. And in one of his molam on Dzogchen, he says, so Buddha is supposed to be most eloquent, but when it comes to describing the emptiness of emptiness, even Buddha fell short of description. Buddha don't have word to describe. So likewise, emptiness of emptiness. And I think it also pertains to one of the questions recently asked by our friend Gunther, who said whether the Madhyamika applies the same rigorous criticism to their own theories and their own doctrines. And this shows that they do. For them, emptiness itself is not some sort of a kind of a final absolute conclusion where we can rest and be fixated on. For them, that kind of fixation is also in a way wrong, and to get fixated with Madhyamika teachings is also wrong. Madhyamika teaching is just a mere finger pointing to the moon. The aim is really to look at the moon. This emptiness of what is called emptiness is known as emptiness. So this is the fourth emptiness. And why is it taught by Buddha? It was taught by Buddha Shakyamuni in the Prajnaparamita Sutras to counter the grasping thought that emptiness is something real, that emptiness is some sort of a final ground, that emptiness is some sort of a substrata. Yeah, this is not the idea. This is something we have to keep in mind, like emptiness of emptiness is very, very important. And Nagarjuna also warns about the danger of getting fixated with the idea of emptiness in the Root of Wisdom. So he says that if someone is poisoned, that poison can be cured by medicine. But if the medicine itself turns out to be a source of affliction, then there is no cure. Likewise, view of emptiness is really a effective means to get rid of our dualistic tendencies. But on the other hand, if we get fixated to the emptiness, if we think that emptiness is some sort of absolute principle, then Nagarjuna warns that there is no cure, at least for some time. Okay, maybe I will take one or two questions and then we can stop here. Or if you want to have any comments. Thank you, Arne ji. If not, we can have a break for next 30 minutes, and then when we begin, you can ask or share. Yeah, if you have any comments or questions or anything that you want to ask or share.
Sonam,
Yeah.
this emptiness of emptiness, how is it to be understood? We always use emptiness in our argumentation, and even more in, I think, if we in our contemplation. So there we use it. Is it a kind of conceptual emptiness we use there? And the ultimate emptiness is has no words.
I think one can on one level one can understand this phrase emptiness of emptiness as signifying that the ultimate state itself cannot be encapsulated in any language, that it is really beyond language or terminological description. This is one understanding of how one can understand. Then the second understanding, maybe within the contemplative practice, is, for example, usually, generally speaking, especially within the Sutric Mahayana, we are, at least at the very beginning, we are supposed to alternate between the analytical meditation and then the stabilization meditation. We analyze, we come to a conclusion that, for example, body or one's own I does not actually exist. We come to the conclusion that it is emptiness. But then we switch from that analytical meditation into stabilization meditation. And when we are doing the stabilization meditation, we are not to kind of continue that conviction that, oh, okay, this is emptiness, emptiness, emptiness. That kind of conviction has to be discontinued. So maybe, again, it's probably a path language, like mere knowing maybe, or mere awareness without being focused or fixated or kind of entertaining any particular view as such. That could be how one can understand the emptiness of emptiness within the context of contemplative meditation. And then linguistically, as I mentioned earlier, emptiness of emptiness connotes that the ultimate reality itself cannot be expressed in verbal terms. And then on a metaphysical or ontological sense, emptiness of emptiness connotes that emptiness is not some sort of a fundament, some sort of an absolute principle on which those conventional phenomena rest. It itself lacks this inherent existence, so to speak.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Thank you.
So maybe the best way, I think, to hear this phrase emptiness of emptiness, one can really try to understand it within the framework of contemplative meditation. That seems to be the best understanding, like being merely aware but not grasping, not fixated, not this spaciousness, no, this element of spaciousness. And again, I want to last year also, I think I quoted this. There's this, I don't know the passage verbatim, but in Sogyal Rinpoche's Tibetan book of Living and Dying, he mentions Chogyal Lodé being asked by an Indian seeker what is meditation, and Chogyal Lodé is supposed to have said that the past thought has already passed, future has not yet arisen, and then in between these two there is some sort of a space. Remaining in that space is meditation, and one can say that emptiness of emptiness within the contemplative framework is remaining in that state, or is a description. Emptiness of emptiness is a description of that meditative state, we can say something like this. Yeah.
So Nala,
Yes.
when you said existence and non-existence is negated, is this because phenomena is unborn and unceasing?
Yes.
So both are negated.
Yes. So in the Rudhyana Sutra, in the Shravaka Sutra, they say, for example, form does not intrinsically exist. Like existence with regards to form is denied. But because form has never arisen, therefore it has never existed. because it has never existed, it has never not existed, so to speak. So both any kind of dichotomous categories and dualistic concept are negated with reference to every phenomena in Mahayana. So, like for example, one of the chapter of Nagarjuna's Root of Wisdom is I think it's in the 23rd or 24th chapter where Nagarjuna negates permanence and impermanence, suffering and non-suffering with respect to our aggregate. So for him, like we cannot qualify our aggregates as permanence. Likewise, Nagarjuna thinks that we cannot qualify it as impermanence. We cannot qualify our samsaric experience and samsaric aggregates as happiness or peace. Likewise, he says suffering is also equally inapplicable to our body, because like permanency and happiness, impermanency and suffering are equally never arisen, are equally or primordially pacified, so to speak. This is Nagarjuna's argument. Yeah. Okay, let us go into the text a little bit then. So I think inner emptiness, outer emptiness, inner and outer emptiness, emptiness of emptiness. So chi tongbani, nang tongbani, china tongbani, tongbani tongbani. Now is the chembo tongbani, the emptiness of great immensity, or maybe to put it crude, big emptiness. Chembo tongbani. No. Okay. Space pervades all the worlds and also the beings this world contain, and it exemplifies the immeasurable thought. Space is great immensity in all directions. So here, emptiness of great immensity is emptiness of space. Yeah, space is empty. Space is not absolute, so to speak. This is what the text seems to be saying. That space itself is devoid of all 10 directions. This is emptiness of great immensity. So it is this space, and this again has a within the Indian historical intellectual tradition and spiritual tradition. There are some non-Buddhist schools who really thought that space actually exists absolutely, and everything that is happening within that space, like the emergence of the universe, emergence of sentient being, their disintegration, their abiding, happens within a container called space, which has this permanent substance to it. And this is, I think, strongly argued by Vaisheshika, one of the really like a logical and also atomistic school of Hindu philosophy. So they argued for the reality of space. For them, space and time are independent entity from the things that is happening within them. So space is really like a container in which things happen, and time is also like a measure, independent measure, within which the things come into arising, abides, and disintegrate. So they really thought that. And maybe Buddha has this when he says that space is great emptiness of great immensity. That could be within the historical context, that could be one of the reasons. And yeah, we get bogged down by the vastness of space sometimes, and we think of in terms of big and small. And probably here it could, I think it is not too much of a stretch to say that emptiness of great immensity also probably is talking about our fixation with big and small. Yeah. So this could be another one. And in the Vimalakirti Sutra, there is this idea. Vimalakirti like magically brings another universe with Buddhas and Bodhisattvas, and then our universe does not become small. That universe does not reduce in size. Like it's a huge universe, but able to stand on Vimalakirti's palm, like the Milarepa's story, you know. So we get fixated with size and shapes and color, and then in order to counteract these things, in the sutra, these are taught emptiness of great immensity, and in the Vajrayana, we are taught to use colors and shapes to visualize many deities, and they are doing actually the same thing, but in a different way. it was taught to counteract clinging to great immensity as real. So it really seems to be true that thinking of space as some sort of a core, no, not core, kind of a external house or framework within which things happen. And then another very important idea is nirvana, emptiness of ultimate nirvana. Nirvana itself is emptiness. Yeah, this is also very, very important. Otherwise, again, we might get bogged down and we might get fixated with the idea of nirvana. So since nirvana is supreme goal, it is the ultimate and transcendence of sorrow. That it is that nirvana is devoid of itself, is the emptiness of ultimate. And this is very important for us to realize. And this is precisely why bodhisattvas and Buddhas are able to function within the samsara, even though they have realized nirvana or they have attained the liberation. Yeah, Buddha Shakyamuni, Manjushri, and many of our teachers who are already enlightened, they are able to function well within the samsaric condition because they realize that nirvana itself is the nature of samsara. Yeah, ultimately, nirvana is not some sort of a absolutely existing somewhere in the like a platonic form. That is not the case. For them, nirvana itself is emptiness. Therefore, they are able to function within the samsara. And there's a very, I don't remember the chapter, but in Shantideva's Bodhicharya Avatara, he says, Kebi chinna miga me. So because they are wise, there's no suffering. Mige chinna tikpa mechir tungel me. And so Shantideva in that text is describing the person of Bodhisattvas and Buddha. He says, because they don't have non-virtuous action, they don't suffer physically. Because they are wise, they don't suffer mentally. Kebi chirna miga me dungel mechir, tikpa mechir dungel me. And that's really a very, very profound statement. And likewise, Bodhisattvas and Buddhas, they are able to work within the samsara, even though they realize, without being stained by samsara, they are able to work within samsara because they have realized the emptiness of ultimate, namely emptiness of nirvana. And actually, Nagarjuna in that Root of Wisdom dedicate a whole chapter to show that nirvana is emptiness. I think it's his 25th chapter, Nyangde Takpa, examination of nirvana. And he comes to the conclusion that basically samsara and nirvana are both dualistic concepts. That the nature of samsara itself is nirvana, that the nature of nirvana itself is in a way samsara, and that they cannot be separated. And yeah, so when one realizes the primordial nature of samsara, that itself is nirvana. And then why is this taught, emptiness of ultimate, to counter the grasping thought that nirvana is something real? And this is actually some Buddhists too. Especially those who follow the philosophical view of Vaibhashika, they think that nirvana is unconditioned phenomena, but it is an entity, it is a thing, it is a substantially existing entity for them. And for Nagarjuna and Chandrakirti, that's a wrong understanding. And Buddha taught emptiness of nirvana or emptiness of ultimate to realize that. Taught this emptiness of the ultimate, the knower of the ultimate truth. Okay, the purpose of this Tuendambatongbani, or like the emptiness of the ultimate or emptiness of nirvana. And this is also very, very important. Sometimes we get fixated with the idea of emptiness. No, we think that emptiness is preferable to samsaric world, and we tend to, after sometimes our preference gets solidified, our preference get kind of solidified and fixated, and that is again another samsara, that kind of judging samsara and nirvana in terms of better and in terms of something to be relinquished. And in that we have to remind ourselves of this emptiness of ultimate. The three realms coming from, yes, so this also shows really for like beginners, and especially even within the context of like study and reflection, these things are really very difficult to accept. On the one hand, emotionally very difficult to, intellectually also quite difficult to understand, emotionally very difficult to accept that ultimate like nirvana. We are struggling to attain nirvana, yet saying that Nirvana itself is really like samsara, and then it's like non-existence, or I mean it's emptiness, things like this. It's really difficult. And many yogis, when they criticize the scholastic aspect of Buddhism, they say that these people only talk, they don't live, and yogis are supposed to live in this kind of, embody this seeming contradiction, so to speak. Yogis are like they are the one who are really realize, adopts, and then Mahasiddhas, they are the one who really kind of live and embodies this seemingly contradictory and incompatible insight. In them this lives, no? And maybe even I think some of you have the fortune, I have never seen, but probably have seen someone like Dew Khyentse Rinpoche. I've only seen him in videos and recordings, and one can see someone like him. He seems to embody that quality, right? Yes, he is present in this suffering world, samsara, yet he seems to be not limited, and in a way, how to put it, like perfectly embodying this kind of insight, like being aware of what is happening in the samsara, yet not being limited and constrained by that. And then the emptiness of conditioned, again it's easy to understand. Conditioned are the conditioned phenomena. Conditioned phenomena are devoid of themselves, and that is the emptiness of conditioned. So the three realms, namely, maybe one of you can tell. Yeah, three realms. Yeah. Pallavi.
I'll try. It's a form, formless, and desire.
Yes, of course. Thank you. Three realms. Yes, the form and the kama, the kama dhatu, our realm, then the form and formless realm, coming from their conditions. So they are conditioned. They are cursed by karma and ignorance, and then many different factors are described with certainty to be conditioned. They are conditioned. They are impermanent. They are in a way produced, so to speak. They are empty of themselves, that these three realms are empty of themselves, was taught as emptiness of condition. So we are emptiness, our reality is emptiness of condition, because most of us looks like we are from the kama realm, the desire realm. And because we are desire realm, we are from desire realm, actually we are the desire realm, right? Because we are desire realm and we are conditioned, thus, and because we are conditioned, we are devoid of ourselves. Therefore, we are the emptiness of the conditioned. Our reality is emptiness of the conditioned. And then next one is emptiness of unconditioned. That which has no arising and duration and lacks impermanence is unconditioned. That it is empty of itself is the emptiness of unconditioned. So 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. I think this is the 8th emptiness. Remember, Buddha in the sutra was talking with Subhuti, and Buddha first taught 16 emptiness and then summarized or kind of summarize this 16 emptiness into 4 emptiness. So we are still talking about the 16 emptiness, and we are at halfway. And unconditioned phenomena, maybe one could think of space as unconditioned in the sense not that it is absolute, unconditioned in the sense that it is not affected by conditioned phenomena. It's really difficult to fathom this unconditioned. Many Buddhists, like especially the Vaibhashika, they really thought that there is something called unconditioned, which substantially exists. And for Madhyamika, for Sautantrika, unconditioned is just a mere concept only. For maybe we can hear it is, I think the Sutantrika school's idea of conditioned and unconditioned is probably more easy to understand. For them, conditioned phenomena like glass, water exist. They have a substance. Unconditioned phenomena is mere negation of that. It's just a mental construct. It's a mere negation. Yeah. So maybe that is helpful for us to understand. Otherwise, unconditioned, it does not really conditioned phenomena we can touch, we can see them, no, but unconditioned phenomena they are not given to our normal sensory organs. So therefore it's more abstract, and so Tantrika's idea of thinking of unconditioned as mere non-existence or mere negation of condition is easy to understand, I think. So in any case, if there is an unconditioned phenomena, then that itself is empty of itself, and it's emptiness of unconditioned. And if you want to understand more about emptiness of conditioned and emptiness of unconditioned phenomena, you can look into the 7th chapter of Root of Wisdom, which is called Duje Takpa, I think, the examination of conditioned phenomena. And there Nagarjuna argues against he established the emptiness of conditioned phenomena, and then at the final section he also asks us to apply the same argument to unconditioned phenomena and come to the same conclusion. Also, for Nagarjuna, conditioned and unconditioned are mutually dependent concept, therefore interdependently originated, therefore inherently non-existence, therefore emptiness. So this is how he argued. So for these two emptiness, conditioned and unconditioned, you can look into the Nagarjuna 7th chapter. And for the first three emptiness, inner and outer emptiness, you can look at Nagarjuna's 4th, 5th, and 6th chapter. Like the 4th is the examination of aggregates, sense sense sphere. Then Pumbo, like aggregates. 5th, 6th is again, I think, examination of this element. So you can look at those chapters and then come to the understanding. And with regards to the Madhyamika's refutation of inherent existence of space, I don't remember anything particular in Nagarjuna's work, but there in the work of his disciple Aryadeva, the 400 stanzas, one of the chapters actually refutes this absolute space, maybe chapter number 9 or 10, again I don't remember clearly. So these are some of the sources which you can look to get more kind of a deeper insight. And for the Buddhist Madhyamika understanding of relative nature of time, you can look at Nagarjuna's Root of Wisdom, chapter number 19 or 20, Dhyutakpa, like examination of time. Okay, let us go to the next one. Emptiness of beyond freedoms, Thale Devatomani. So that which is free of extremes is referred to as beyond extremes. That is empty of itself is referred to as emptiness of beyond freedom, beyond extremes. Thale Devatomani. So it could be space, it could be samsara, or the nature of samsara. Nature of samsara is beyond extreme. In any case, all emptiness are beyond extremes. So therefore, that kind of emptiness is itself the emptiness of beyond extremes. So it's more or less the same thing. Emptiness of emptiness and emptiness of beyond extremes is the same thing. Since samsara has neither a beginning point nor a final end, it is referred to as a beginningless and endless. With no coming and going, it is dreamlike. That this existence, that is the samsaric existence, is empty of itself, is described with certainty in the treatise as emptiness of what is beginningless and endless. So samsara is beginningless and endless, and samsara is empty of itself. Therefore, the emptiness of samsara is phrased as emptiness of what is beginningless and what is endless. Maybe in English translation, it might seem a bit, I don't know, foreign, and then maybe a kind of a not easy to appreciate, but probably this is my guess, I'm not sure. Probably in the original Sanskrit, it might also have to do with the beauty of expression. Probably saying emptiness of samsara and saying emptiness of what is beginningless and what is endless. Probably the second expression is more nuanced and more elegant, I guess. Maybe this is the reason why, for example, in the Buddhist text, this is found. That could have to do with the linguistic, the aesthetic of expression. The next one, emptiness of not to be discarded. So to discard means to reject, no? To discard, to throw away, and definitely refers to casting aside, so like leaving aside. Not to discard means not abandon, meaning not to be shunned at all. And what is not to be discarded is in turn empty of itself, and this is called, therefore, emptiness of not to be discarded. Just a moment, I don't remember what is referring here. Okay, so in the Atro commentary, this what is not to be discarded is not specified clearly, but in some other sources, this is identified as the 37 factors to enlightenment. So for mindfulness, for perfect abandonment, for miraculous feat, then like 5 faculties, 5 powers, 8 fold paths, 7 limbs to enlightenment. So these 37 are very important aspect of Buddhist path, and they are actually what is meant by the truth of path leading to cessation, the fourth noble truth. These 37 limbs to enlightenment, or these 37 factors to enlightenment, are the fourth noble truth, and these 37 are not to be discarded. They are not to be cast aside. They have to be cultivated. But one also has to realize that this path, like entire spectrum of path, like the whole Buddhist path, are included in one of these 37. Yet they are also not to be fixated. They are not to be obsessed with. They are also empty. They are devoid of themselves. And the emptiness of path is what is called as emptiness of not to be discarded. Not to be discarded because they are to be cultivated, but that does not mean that we have to grasp at them or we have to be fixated them. Yeah. So one's own attitude to any kind of phenomena is use it but not to be attached to it. Yeah. Then is the emptiness of intrinsic nature. It's the same like emptiness of emptiness, emptiness of intrinsic nature. Since the essence of things, such as those that are conditioned, is not invented by Shravakas and Pratyeka Buddhas, nor by the Bodhisattvas or Tathagatas. So conditioned are the forms and so on. The essence of conditioned things and so on is termed their intrinsic nature. What is the essence of conditioned thing? It is the emptiness. And this being, that is the emptiness of conditioned phenomena, being empty of itself, is emptiness of intrinsic nature, right? So initially emptiness of emptiness is taught, and here emptiness of intrinsic nature is taught. They are the same thing described in different word. Why? Initial one, the emptiness of emptiness is taught so that we will not get fixated or grasp at the emptiness. Here it is taught to show that emptiness is not fabricated or invented by Buddha, Bodhisattvas, Pratyeka Buddhas, and Shravakas. As I mentioned earlier, they just revealed it, so to speak, or they maybe cautiously, they discovered it. We could say something like this in their meditative state. Then is the emptiness of all phenomena, like every phenomena. All means all, like no exception. So what are the all phenomena? The very important list, no? The 18 elements, the 6 external object, 6 internal sense organ, 6 consciousness, right? So these are the 18 elements, 6 sensory contexts, and then the context arising from the contact between the 6 elements, and then the 6 sensory faculties, and 6 feelings that arise therefrom. All things, both material and non-material, material, form, taste, smell, so on, non-material, consciousness, feeling, perception, volition, and so on. All phenomena, both conditioned and unconditioned, material and immaterial, conditioned like aggregates, unconditioned like sky or space, all of this, that all these phenomena are empty of themselves, is the emptiness of all phenomena. That's the Chodhamji Tongbani. And then now Chandrakirti will give a kind of a short summary of Abhidharma. So from here, if you study, if you are careful from the line number C and D of 201 until the next few verses, you will be able to get a kind of a digested presentation of Abhidharma. In the Abhidharma, it's basically defining this phenomenon. What is form? Form is blah, blah, blah. What is feeling? Feeling is such and such. What is perception? Perception is this and this. So Chandrakirti also gives a very, very digested kind of summary of those phenomena. So for him, the formable and so on lack their own beings. This is the emptiness of defining characteristics, the next emptiness. Now he will define form is defined as capable of materiality. So our glass, our example glass is a form because it is capable of materiality in the sense it has manifested as materiality. Atom is form because it is capable, it has the potential to manifest and express it as itself as a form, as a material, as a kind of some sort of a concrete phenomenon. So this is the definition of form, and these are really coming from the Abhidharma sources. So as I mentioned earlier, in this section, Chandrakirti is presenting the Abhidharma list from the Prajnaparamita perspective. So form is defined as capable of materiality. What is feeling? Feeling has the nature of an experience. So this is, again, one can really think of as a digested presentation of the Abhidharma definitions. Discrimination apprehends the sign, like our example, pain and glass. We are able to delineate and differentiate between pain, the writing instrument, and glass, the one holding water. Why? Because we have a discrimination. We are able to delineate this. And again, these kind of definitions are quite important, but we should not absolutize them. But we can also, yet we have to use these words with some sort of a definitional constraint. Otherwise, it will be very vague concept. So one can use this definition. Discrimination, touché, apprehends the sign. It apprehends the sign or features of this object, and then come to the conclusion that it is some instrument to write. Mental formation constructs, our mental formation, our imagination, our memory, they construct. This is the mental formation, the fourth in the aggregates, Awareness of a specific object is defining mark of consciousness. So these 5 are the definition of 5 aggregates. Aggregates are characterized by suffering. Our aggregates are characterized by suffering because they disintegrates. And the elements nature is akin to venomous snake. So elements are the 18 elements. And here he is defining Chandrakirti is defining elements as similar to venomous snake. And this seems to have more to do with the etymology of Sanskrit. In Sanskrit, the elements are called dhatu, no? And that dhatu, the noun dhatu, seems to have been constructed from a verbal root called dha. And the venomous snake seems to have a similar connotation. So elements are dhatu. Elements are dhatu in as much as they retain some sort of a characteristics. They retain, right? Venomous snakes is supposed to have retain, or like retaining. They have this. Venomous snakes are retaining in the sense that they will hold other animals in their mouth. Likewise, the elements, 18 elements, are elements because they have some sort of a basic features. That's why they are similar to the 18. They are similar to the venomous snake. So the aggregates, the elements, the 18 elements. Now the 12 ayatanas, the sense fields. No, it's translated as a sense field. So the Buddha said are the doorways to arising of suffering. So all that is dependently originated is characterized by composition. We have to remember that Chandrakirti is saying, he said, no, emptiness of all phenomena, or emptiness of defining characteristics. So we could ask what are these all phenomena? And now he is listing these all phenomena, 5 aggregates, 18 elements, 12 ayatanas, compassion, and blah blah blah. he will list everything and then come to the conclusion that they are all emptiness. And another, okay, I mentioned one could see this particular section as a digested summary as a very, very short summary of Abhidharma content. But also here in this section, Chandakirti is again presenting ground, path, and result. 5 aggregates, 12 spheres, elements. These are ground, right? And then next one, he will present the 6 paramitas. Then the meditative states, all are path. And then he will go on to present the resultant states, Buddha's fearlessness, Buddha's compassion, Buddha's omniscient mind. So in this way also he is presenting the whole kind of a ground, path, and the resultant states. So this is also something that we can pay attention to. And this shows that from the Madhyamika perspective, there is no exception, whether it is ground or path or results, everything is empty, everything is beyond extreme, everything is non-dualistic ultimately. So now, all that is dependently originated is characterized by composition, conditioned. Now, until now, it is the presentation of ground. Yeah, ground is samsaric phenomena, aggregates, elements, spheres. Now is the presentation of path, namely Mahayana path here. And also the other aspect of the path. So for example, giving is what is defined as the perfection of generosity. So the generous first paramita. Discipline is absence of torment. Second paramita. Forbearance is absence of angry. Diligence is the absence of unwholesome action. Fourth, meditative absorption is characterized by focus. The fifth, wisdom by the absence of attachment. This is very significant. Wisdom is defined in terms of absence of attachment. It does not mean like our, I don't know, our attachment to food or desire to another person or to attachment to a car or mobile phone or things like this. Here attachment has a subtle meaning. In Tibetan, I think it's called chapatawa, like the subtle attachment. It means dualistic tendencies. It means dualistic appearances. Yeah. So all these paramitas are emptiness. So the path is empty now. Ground already shown to be empty. Now path is also becoming empty. And then meditative absorption, the dhyanas, the 4 dhyanas. And then the immeasurables, the 4 immeasurables. They are very beautiful. They are very some of the most inspiring practices. 8, they also are not to be fixated with. Likewise, the absorption of formless states. So the meditative absorptions is the meditative states of the form realm, and the formless states are the meditative states of the formless realm. And these two connotes the calm abiding aspect, like the shamatha aspect. Wisdom, vipassana, here shamatha, they are again empty. The knower of perfect truth, that is Buddha, said these are characterized by unperturbed serenity. So this meditative absorption, immeasurable, formless states are defined as unperturbed serenity. That is calm abiding, undistracted. Yeah, unperturbed serenity is the definition of calm abiding. And calm abiding, as I mentioned, within the Buddhist context, are these meditative states. Just a moment. I'm saying the Tibetan words for this. Mitukseni is unperturbed mitukseni. The 37 factors, again, until now one could also say that 6 paramitas are the Mahayana path. Now the path of Shravakas and Pratyeka Buddhas are also no exception. They are also empty. So 37 factors lead to enlightenment. Their nature is to decisively thrive forth from samsara. They are empty. Chandakirti wants to say that they are empty. The nature of emptiness is unobjectifiable. As such, it is utter absence. This is also very important. Unobjectifiable. People say like referenceless. No, it's a referenceless might be nice language within the contemplative practice, but emptiness is also something unobjectifiable. And again, within to use the meditative language, or maybe the instructional language, mengagi tsik, I guess. is mere knowing, is not to be distraction. Sometimes called shetsam, sometimes called mahingsam, like merely not distracting or merely knowing, and that is unobjectifiable and referenceless, seems to be more like a scholastic jargon, so to speak. And this mere knowing and merely not distracting is the yogin's language, but they are describing the same state. As such, it is utter absence. Then signlessness, again, very, very important aspect of the practice of view is signlessness, is peace itself. No? The three doors to liberation: signlessness, wishlessness, and then emptiness. So these three door to liberation, they are very, very important practice of path, of wisdom, yet they are also empty. So signlessness is peace itself. The third nature of door, the nature of the third door, namely wishlessness, is absence of suffering and delusion. Again, just to remind ourselves, the context is Chandakirti at the very beginning said, no, in just a minute, 28, page number 28, verse number 6.201, he said, emptiness of all phenomena, emptiness of defining characteristics. Yeah. So he says, emptiness of all phenomena. What are these? What is included, or what are included under this all? So these are things included under that all: ground, path, result. All means all, no exception. Likewise, they are supposed to be the emptiness of defining characteristics. So we could ask, what is the defining characteristics of form? What is the defining characteristics of calm abiding? And Buddha says calm abiding is unperturbed serenity. And unperturbed serenity is the defining characteristics of calm abiding, and that calm abiding is emptiness, empty of itself. So the idea is very same, and we should not forget the context, and you should refer to this previous verse, but other than that, it's easy to understand. So until now, the nature of liberating factor is utterly free, yeah, utterly empty. Liberating factors are, what is liberating factor? These are the path. Path is utterly free, meaning path are utterly emptiness. So we have the ground as emptiness, we have the paths as emptiness. Like path means every aspect of path: bodhisattva's path, Shravaka's path, calm abiding aspect of path, ethical aspect of the path, wisdom aspect of the path, all are emptiness. Yeah. Then comes the result, like the summum bonum of Buddhist practice. We all aspire to enlightenment. We, at the very beginning of our session, we tried to reflect on bodhicitta as aspiration to attain Buddhahood. But when we attain that, it's also emptiness. Chandakirti is saying that every aspect of Buddha's qualities, his wisdom, his kaya, his kind of unshared, uncommon like qualities are all empty. Buddha's enlightened activities like teaching is also empty. So the 10 power of Buddha are defined as that which brings utter certainty. We will come across those resultant effects on Thursday in the last chapter. While the severs 4 fearlessness, so these are uncommon aspects of Buddha. 10 powers, 4 fearlessness, have the nature of total firmness, but firmness does not mean that they are not empty. Actually, Chandakirti wants to say that they are empty. His perfect knowledge of a specific domains is defined by absence of deficiency in confidence and so on. And that's also empty. That which brings about being's welfare is described as his great loving kindness. So the 4 immeasurables are defined here as a quality of Buddha, but we can apply the same definition in other contexts. So the loving kindness, that which protects those who suffer, defines his great compassion. Sympathetic joy is defined as utter joy, equanimity as unadulterated or unfabricated. These are the unshared attributes of Buddha, described in 18 in number and defined as irremovable, that is, that cannot be taken away from Buddha, Mitropa. Then the Buddha's wisdom of omniscience. Like when we say Buddhahood, it means this wisdom of omniscience is defined as direct perception. That is also empty. That is also something which cannot be fixated with, since all other knowings remain partial. Okay. Then Chandakirti comes to the conclusion that that which defines the condition and that which defines the unconditioned are devoid of themselves. Yeah, condition could be respect to the path or the ground, like aggregates are conditioned. in elements there are some unconditioned phenomena. In the path, maybe the spiritual path and its practice itself could be conditioned, but the object, like ultimate truth, these could be, which is something that we have to relate during the path, which is unconditioned phenomenon. Buddhahood could be conditioned, Buddhahood cannot be conditioned. All of these are devoid of themselves. Yeah, like from the form, he defined form as something potentially, form as formability. From there until the Buddha's omniscience is defined, and this phenomena, beginning with form, ending with omniscience of Buddha, and in between are what Chandakirti means when you say all phenomena are empty. So all are starting from form, ending in omniscience of Buddha, and everything in between. And crucially for Chandakirti, Nagarjuna, and they think Buddha, they are devoid of themselves. I is devoid of itself, they are devoid of themselves. That is the most important point. Because they are devoid of themselves, all phenomena are emptiness, or emptiness of all phenomena, or emptiness of defining characteristics. Until now, Chandakirti defined, Chandakirti kept on defining. For example, he defines great compassion as that which protects those who suffer, is defined as great compassion. So great compassion is that which protects suffering beings. But the great compassion is devoid of its definition, its defining characteristics. Therefore, it is emptiness of defining characteristics. Yeah, each phenomena is defined following the Abhidharmic taxonomy and Abhidharmic tradition. But crucially, Chandakirti differs from Abhidharma in saying that this very phenomena which is described in that characteristics lacks that characteristics, and that lacking, that emptiness is emptiness of defining characteristics. And if I'm not wrong, this is the 14th emptiness in our list of 16 emptiness. We have to remember that we are dealing with 16 emptiness. Then the next one is emptiness of unobservable. 15th, second last. This present moment does not endure. The past and future have no existence. In that tree cannot be perceived anywhere. They are referred to as unobservable. So it is really an emptiness of time, I guess, or at least our perception of time. This unobservability is itself empty of its being. It does not endure eternally nor disintegrate. So this is the emptiness of unobservable. So emptiness of time, one could say. Mimik patongbani. Then the last emptiness in the 16th list is the emptiness of non-thing. Since they originate from their conditions, things like existence as composites. The composite is itself empty of composite, and this is emptiness of non-things. Yeah. So all these are what Buddha taught to Subhuti. Buddha was speaking with Subhuti, and just Buddha listed this by names. And then now Madhyamika, like Chandakirti and Nagarjuna, they are trying to understand Buddha's word. Buddha said, for example, form is emptiness, and they are commenting and then drawing implication and trying to analyze what does that mean. Yeah, in the Prajnaparamita Sutras, the 16 emptiness are mentioned, the names are mentioned, but they are not explained. Now, as you know, in the Mahayana, there are two philosophical schools, Chittamatra and Madhyamika. This is the Madhyamika's reading, and these are the Madhyamika's understanding of Prajnaparamita Sutras. Chittamatra, they also explain this 16 emptiness, but in a different way. They use the same phrase, but they mean different things. Yeah. So this is how Nagarjuna and his tradition, championed by Chandakirti, understand the Prajnaparamita Sutras, and this 16 emptiness and the 4 emptiness that will come are the core content, the core kind of element, the most important content of the Prajnaparamita Sutras in its different lengths. Then in the sutra, in the Prajnaparamita Sutra, Buddha first lists this 16 emptiness, and then Buddha summarized this 16 into 4. So Chandakirti also is explaining the summary, the 4 emptiness. So these are in brief the term. Okay, maybe I will wait here, and then if you have any questions or anything or comments, please.
Sanamla, when it's talking about the omniscience of Buddha as empty, is it relating to the dependent arising of Buddhas as Nimanakaya representation? I don't even know if the word is representation. Presence. Is that relating to Nimanakaya?
I think wisdom of omniscience here is a general term, and it probably means every aspect of Buddha. Madhyamika will say Buddha's eye and Buddha's hair is also omniscience, wisdom. I think Madhyamika will say that Buddha's, I don't know, maybe even a Buddha's smile is for them omniscience. And this Nirmanakaya, Dharmakaya, and Sambhukakaya can be included in this, and they are empty, yeah. So usually if you use the word restrictively, wisdom, when applying to Buddha, it means Buddha's mind, no, mainly mind. But if we use the word in a more loose way, then wisdom of omniscience actually includes every aspect of Buddha's whole being. His body is also omniscience, his speech is also omniscience in a very in a very, very surprising way. Buddha's mind obviously is omniscient, and every aspect of Buddha, whether it is the three kayas or four wisdoms or his three dimensions or his enlightened activities, all are empty. Yeah. His universe. Yeah.
Sunam, could you explain a little bit on the three doors? I didn't get the context where how it is used here.
So three doors are emptiness. So every phenomena are empty. So the three doors are wisdom, right? First is wisdom realizing emptiness. Second is wisdom realizing signlessness, and third is the wisdom realizing wishlessness. So the wisdom that realizes emptiness, which is the first door, is mainly pertaining to the ground. Then the wisdom that realizes the signlessness pertain primarily to the path, to the curse. Yeah? And then the wisdom that realizes the wishlessness, which is the third door, is mainly pertaining to the result. So wishlessness in the sense that there is no hope to attain Buddhahood. Signlessness in the sense that the practice itself is beyond extremes. And then the wisdom of emptiness, the first door, is mainly attitude towards the ground. So one has to remember that sometimes it's used. The three doors actually are emptiness, signlessness, and wishlessness by themselves are not the three doors. It is the wisdom that realizes these three states are the three doors, right? So this is something which we need to remember. And in this context, it is mainly talking about the path, especially the wisdom aspect of the path. The calm abiding aspect of the path has been, like the vipassana aspect of the path is the wisdom of three doors. Then the shamatha aspect of the paths are the sthayanas and meditative states, and both are, according to Chandakirti, empty. They are devoid of their defining characteristics. Therefore, they are emptiness of defining characteristics. Any questions? If not, let us go for next few words. I mean, few verses. Then Buddha summarized the 16 emptiness into 4. They are also very important. On the one hand, I think if we carefully look into this particular section, it will help us to understand and get clarity around some of the fundamental concepts like aggregates, spheres, and then all of these lists and these terms, very unique to Buddhist tradition, and actually gives a detour of the entire spectrum of the path itself, ground, path, and fruit. If someone asks what is ground, we can list this 18, 12, 5 forms and so on. And then if someone asks what is path, we could say, oh, okay, path, Shravaka's path, the 37 limbs, Mahayana path, the 6 paramitas, or path in terms of shamatha, path in terms of vipassana, we could say that. Likewise, if someone asks what is result, we could say Buddha's, and then his omniscience, his fearlessness, his powers, and so on. So it also gives us a very succinct and then summarized account of the entire spectrum of Buddha Dharma on the one hand. On the other hand, it will also help us to understand, for example, Prajnaparamita Sutras in more depth, in more deeper way. Also, if you are, I don't know, maybe some of you probably are committed to doing some sadhanas, and if you happen to meditate and visualize some deities with 4 arms or 16 legs, this 16 emptiness will help us to understand those deities in a more profound way. In the Sakyapa tradition, one of the avatar or manifestation of Hevajra deity is with, I think, 16 arms, I think, if I'm not wrong. And actually these 16 arms are just kind of a tantric way of cultivating the 16 emptiness. So they will really help us even in our sadhanas. And then, yeah, and maybe some of you have already seen, like in group chains, we have really weird looking deities, idams and those things. And especially when we are visualizing, the numbers are very important, because not because that numbers in itself, but for example, 3 eyes or 4 arms are very important when we visualize, because they are exceptional tantric method to realize the 4 emptiness, for example, 4 arms. So these are the significance. Okay, now let's go into the text. The emptiness of things. So all 16 emptiness can be summarized into 4 emptiness. Emptiness of thing, emptiness of non-thing, and then emptiness of nature, and then the emptiness of other nature. So there are 4 emptiness. Like emptiness of things refer primarily to conditioned phenomena. Conditioned phenomena are things, entities. They are devoid of themselves, therefore emptiness of thing. And then non-thing are unconditioned phenomena, and they are devoid of themselves, so emptiness of non-thing. Right? Then the third one, the absence of intrinsic nature is emptiness of so-called nature. That is the emptiness of emptiness. It's the same meaning. And then the fourth one is emptiness of transcendental reality. That's the fourth one. So here it is the emptiness of nirvana. Emptiness, all of the emptiness of conditioned phenomena are included under emptiness of thing. Unconditioned phenomena, many are included under the emptiness of non-thing. Emptiness of emptiness is summarized as emptiness of nature or emptiness of intrinsic nature in the summarize. The fourth one, emptiness of transcendental reality, is emptiness of nirvana. So the meaning is just same as we have just encountered earlier, and the presentation is slightly different. Yeah. So this is how Buddha summarized the 16 emptiness when he is talking with Subhuti. Okay, so yeah, 622, we can see whether the Buddha appear in the world or whether they do not appear in the world, all things are empty. And this is proclaimed to be transcendental reality, that is nirvana. This is the perfect endpoint in suchness and emptiness of transcendent reality, emptiness of nirvana. Yeah. This is how these enumerations of emptiness are proclaimed in the perfection of wisdom sutras. So at the very beginning, when Chandakirti is introducing this particular section, for example, just a moment, where is that? Verse number 179, to help free beings, the Buddha taught no self in twofold terms, and that of phenomena and that of person. And again, for the sake of diverse trainees, Buddha expounded these two in other diverse terms through further enumeration. Yeah, after teaching in an elaborate way, where in Prajnaparamita Sutra to Subhuti, 16 kinds of emptiness, the Buddha summarized this into 4. And then Chandakirti listed these 16, explained them, listed 4, explained them, and now he is giving the source. Where are these taught? By whom? By Buddha. He already mentioned by Buddha. And what are the what is the essential meaning of these 16 and 4 emptiness? The essential meaning of these 16 and 4 emptiness are true no self, the no self, or the emptiness doctrine. And where is this taught? This is how these enumerations of emptiness are proclaimed in Perfection of Wisdom Sutras. And in this way, Chandakirti's text is also explanation of Perfection of Sutras. or entering into the perfection of wisdom sutras. And one also has to realize, usually when we say, no, Nagarjuna, that's the middle way tradition, is a commentary, is an explanation of perfection sutras. But usually we think that Nagarjuna is giving some sort of a argument in order to prove the conclusion reached in the perfection sutra. The conclusion are no form, form is emptiness. And Nagarjuna argues for this kind of understanding, but does not explain what is form in depth. But Chandakirti here in the 6th chapter has not only supplemented the argument to prove that form is emptiness, but also, crucially, Chandakirti defines what is form. This is very important. Yeah. So this also shows, I think during one of our sessions, I tried to describe this text within the Tibetan tradition. It is always considered to be like Bodhicharya Avatara. This is also considered to be one of the Shungzang Yishingin Nurbu, the great treatise that is like a wish-granting jewel or wish-fulfilling jewel. And in this way, it is wish-fulfilling jewel in the sense that it really brings the both wings of Buddhist path and present them in a very convincing manner, so to speak. And we will end here, and tomorrow Chandakirti will use actually the idea of two wings to fly towards the Buddhahood. And tomorrow you can read from 224 until 11.9, so page number 33, and there is the presentation of the remaining aspect of the Bodhisattva's bhumis. And then from 11.10 is the Buddhahood, the result itself, which we will study on Thursday. And maybe tomorrow and on Thursday, especially tomorrow, I think we will finish it quite fast. So if you have any questions, clarifications, or anything that you want to share, please, you can bring them. And also on Thursdays, you can also bring those things. Okay, I will stop here.
Sorry, can I ask a question about the 16 emptinesses?
Yeah.
So, those 16 emptinesses were listed in the Prajna Paramita, but there is no teaching explaining each one of them. So,
No.
Correct?
Yes. So, for example, Buddha just said, form is emptiness, and then emptiness is form. Neither form is defined nor emptiness is defined. And emptiness is defined by Nagarjuna by arguing for emptiness, like establishing the every phenomenon as emptiness. But form is left undefined. Now it is Chandakirti. He used the idea from Abhidharma to define form, to define compassion. Yeah.
Okay. And with Nagarjuna, did Nagarjuna comment? I mean, on those 16 emptinesses, or is it Chandakirti first?
Explicitly Chandakirti. Nagarjuna didn't comment on this 16 as such, I think. Okay. Maybe in the Ratnavali, I think he probably might have commented. In the Ratnavali, there's the Jewel of Garland. I think in the 4th chapter, there's a kind of a huge section where Nagarjuna argues for the authenticity authenticity of Mahayana doctrines, and mainly he is defending Prajnaparamita Sutras as authentic Mahayana doctrine. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. Okay, yeah, we can do the dedication.
Through this merit, may all beings attain the omniscient state of enlightenment and conquer the enemy of false and delusion. May they all be liberated from this ocean of samsara and from its pounding waves of birth, old age, sickness, and death. Just as the Bodhisattva Manjushri attained omniscience and Samantabhadra too, All these merits now I dedicate to train and follow in their footsteps. As all the victorious Buddhas of past, present, and future praise dedication as supreme, so now I too dedicate all these sources of merit of mine for all beings to perfect good actions. May the life of the Lama, the glory of the teaching be secure. May the whole world be filled with holders of the teaching. May the wealth and power of the patrons of the teaching increase, and may all be auspicious, though, so that the teaching remains for ages to come. Thank you, everyone, and see you again tomorrow morning.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.